Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken. We're back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. I'm excited about this week's guest. It's Alan Williams, the founder and managing director of SerVICEBRAND Global. Now, Alan is, his background is in hospitality, and everybody needs a hospitality mentality. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about how customer experience starts with leadership. It's built into the culture and a whole lot more. Now, before we get into that, a quick announcement. If you've got an amazing story about customer service or experience that you want to share, please do share it with me. And if you have a question about anything related to the topic, please ask the question. Go to any of the social media channels. I'm pretty much everywhere. And if it is a question, be sure to use the hashtag #AskShep. I'll either answer the question there in the social channel, in my newsletter, the Shepherd Letter, or perhaps on this show. So let's get into the interview now. We're welcoming Alan Williams. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Shep. Looking forward to this.
So I love it. You've written this great book, Supercharging Customer Experience, and the subtitle is How Organizational Alignment Drives Performance. I want to get into that because I believe that the first place that customer experience or a customer service initiative has to start is in the C-suite or the executive level, and then it gets permeated through the entire organization. We'll talk about that. But I think also what's impressive is your track record and your resume, because you spent a number of years with Marriott as a trainer. You were president of the Meetings Industry Council, which this is huge. For those that don't know that, that is the meetings industry, which is hotels, event planners, producers, professional speakers like myself. We actually participate in these events, and there's an association just for all of us to hang out and learn from each other. So thank you for all that you've done. I know you do a tremendous amount of pro bono work as well. In other words, you're an all-around great guy.
Well, thanks, Shep. And you're mentioning hospitality. I think the hospitality mentality is the thing that helps people really drive customer experience. And I didn't realize it at the time when I was in that sector, but it's such a brilliant training ground because you can bring so much from that space and then apply it to other sectors that maybe don't think in the same way.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that the hospitality mentality is a powerful way to think, regardless of the industry that you're in. It's just important that even somebody in, who sells to the government or B2B needs to be thinking that way. So with that in mind, let's jump into this. And the first thing I want to do, I know I've got a number of talking points. You mentioned in one of the points, and then I want to get into the whole culture thing, that the customer landscape is changing.
Yeah, that's right. So it used to be very different. And I think unless you understand and accept the changes that are happening, then you're kind of at a disadvantage. And there are three fundamental drivers. Of course, there are others as well, but I think these three are the key ones. So first, the research shows that we are making choices and decisions now on a very different basis than we used to. It used to be very rational, often driven by financial motivation. But now we're making choices based on what's important to us or our values. And the switch is quite phenomenal, actually. It used to be something like 75% of our decisions were driven by rationale. Over the last 20 years, that's really flipped. And it's now 80% driven by emotion and values. So a good example, for instance, is fair trade, where we're willing to pay a 20 or 30% premium for a product, not because it's better, not because it's better value, but because we believe it's got to the shelf in the right way. So choice, that's the first variable.
Now, I want to make sure I understand what you just said. It got to the shelf the right way, meaning you like the company and what they stand for and what they represent. So yeah, in our research, we talk about the importance of a cause or standing for something important. This is what you're referring to.
That's exactly it, Shep.
Yep.
And
Great.
the second C is communication. So we all know that the internet and social media has changed the world. We can communicate our thoughts about anything to millions of people all over the world in a heartbeat. And that's been a game changer. And then finally, control. It used to be that organizations owned their brands. They would decide what they wanted to be, and then they would hire a marketing agency or a PR company just to pump a message out there and hope that enough people would believe that. Well, now we don't believe the official corporate messaging. What we do believe is what our friends and colleagues and associates tell us. And so control has shifted from ownership by organizations to co-ownership by stakeholders. So whether they're customers, employees, service partners, or local communities, those are the stakeholders that shape what people think about our brand.
Yeah. So I love the way you're going. You're essentially saying that owners of companies, the C-suite, the leadership of a company, they can only hope that they're giving the customers and stakeholders what they expect. And I'll start with the stakeholders being far more about the customer rather than investors and everyone else. And yeah, I just recently read an article, and I keep seeing articles like this pop up over the years that, and this one had to do with trust, that X amount of a small percentage, actually a large percentage of leaders think their customers trust them. And then when you ask the customers, and trust is a big word. I mean, what is it that we trust about them? Is there transparency? Are they doing what they say they're going to be doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Anyway, bottom line is that there's a big delta. And I think that's what you're saying, is that you need to understand, we need to bring these back closer together.
Definitely, Chef. And I think that the organizations that will be successful in the future will be those that manage to establish a sense of shared values across all of its stakeholder groups. So the customers and the employees and the investors all feel that they're part of a similar community that they trust, and they trust all of the different stakeholder groups. So there's no kind of, oh, we'll treat customers like this, but we'll treat our employees like this, and it'll be different.
Yeah, interesting. I'm thinking about Jeff Bezos having an open seat at his boardroom table, which is to represent where the customer should be sitting and helping make the decisions that move the company forward.
Yeah,
and you're shaking your head. Yes, it's an audio interview, so they're not seeing this, but I'm seeing you going, yes, you agree.
I hadn't heard that before, and it's what a wonderful thing to do. And you contrast that with so many organizations that, since customer experience and CX became kind of trendy, a lot of organizations have said, oh, well, we must have some of that. But then what they do is they create a position. They don't actually give it the seniority that it needs. And then you have a person with some sort of sense of responsibility for this area, but no authority and no power. And then they wonder why it doesn't have a positive impact. So congratulations and hats off to Jeff.
Yeah. And by the way, a number of companies think this way. For some reason, his explanation of what he does and his focus on the relentless, amazing customer experience is part of what made Amazon what they are today. It's what made Chick-fil-A what they are today. If you take a look at all the iconic brands, it's what Apple did. They recognized the opportunity to separate themselves, number one, with a product that they thought was superior. And then, the way Apple would think is, you know what, let's think about what the customer doesn't even know they need, but they need. But then in the same respect to the customer, let's give them an experience that, this whole idea of the Genius Bar, I never loved having to take my phone in or my computer until I tried it. And I go, you know what? Not a bad way of making it happen. I actually get to not just talk to somebody on the phone. I get to make an appointment that's convenient to my schedule. Maybe not so convenient to get in the car and drive there, but I get to work one-on-one, eye to eye with somebody that's going to help me resolve my problem. How many companies have set up a system like that for their customers? Not many.
Yeah, and you've mentioned two things there. One, creating the experience, but it's the first one that caught my attention because delivering a fantastic customer experience, in my experience, is about the hard work and obsession with delivering it every single time. And the reason that it's not that often that we come across great service is because it's really hard work, right? And a lot of people just don't have the rigor, they don't have the discipline, and they don't have the longevity and maintain their interest to make sure that that does happen. And you've just reminded me of, I remember when I ran a five-star hotel, my guys used to say to me, Alan, when you walk through the cocktail bar, why is it you always have to adjust one cushion on the chairs to make sure that it's at the right angle? And it's like, because these small details are what sets the tone. And if the person who's running the business is displaying attention to that, then your employees will display attention to that and your guests will notice.
Yeah, I love that. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, I think the point you're trying to make is what we're going to talk about next, which is the customer experience is a way of working, not just a function or a set of processes. In other words, it's not a department, it's not a strategy, it's a philosophy, it's part of the culture. And that's all about what Supercharging the Customer Experience, the book that you've just written with your co-author, David Stubberfield. That's what it's all about. So let's take a quick break. We're coming right back. This is Amazing Business Radio. Don't go away. One of my favorite sayings is that customer service isn't a department, it's a philosophy. And it's a philosophy that must be embraced by everyone in the organization all the time, and that's 24/7. So if customer service is important to you, and I know it is, then you will love our virtual training, the ultimate on-demand customer service and experience training program that you can access anytime, anywhere. Now, the course content applies to everyone, regardless of position and responsibility, from senior executives to the most recently hired and everyone in between. You'll discover tips, ideas, and strategies that won't cost your company a fortune, but will produce what I call moments of magic, those positive experiences, and it will happen at every level of your organization. So go to Customer Service VT. That's V as in virtual, T as in training. That's customerservicevt.com. It's time to get customer focused.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We're back on Amazing Business Radio. We're talking with Alan Williams, who is the author, actually co-author of Supercharging the Customer Experience. The subtitle, How Organizational Alignment Drives Performance. And that's what I want to talk about next. The customer experience, and this is your words, is a way of working, not just a function or a set of processes. In other words, it's part of the culture. It's built in throughout the company. It's in the DNA. It's not some department or strategy, as I mentioned prior to the break. So let's start the conversation there.
Yeah, so Shep, I think the temptation sometimes when people are looking and talking about the area of customer experience is to regard it in isolation. But actually, that's an impossibility because customer experience is inextricably connected to other parts of the organization. And so if there isn't alignment across the organization and vertically through the organization, CX is not going to be as good as it could be. And in the book, we talk about a framework that we use, which consists of 5 elements. So the first element is the brand identity. So this is crystal clarity about what the organization stands for.
And give me an example of that. Is it when you say crystal clarity, is it one sentence? Is it a paragraph? Is it part of the vision and value statement?
Vision and values sit in there for sure. Also, visual identity does. So it's what is the organization? How do we behave as an organization? And what do we stand for? That's the first thing. If you haven't got clarity there, then you're kind of going to be stuck for what comes next. The next bit is employee engagement. So this is making sure that the people that are representing your organization are really inspired ambassadors. but in the style of the brand identity that you've articulated. Then the customer experience comes in the style of the brand identity delivered by these ambassadors of the organization. And those are the three core elements that in our approach, we insist are aligned at a strategic level and executed in a coordinated fashion. And let me give you just two examples, and I'll use a hospitality example. We positioned the country club that I was responsible for as London's favorite hotel and country club. The reason why was because we were just 20 miles north of London. We were competing with London properties for residential conference business, and we had a better environment and lower prices. So that's why we positioned ourselves in that way. So in the employee engagement space, we had a recognition program, as most businesses do. But what we didn't call it was Most Valuable Player or Employee of the Month. What we did call it was the Golden Apple Awards, which was in honor of the orchards which were in the grounds of the 200-acre estate of our country club, and therefore reinforcing to our employees our brand positioning as London's favorite hotel and country club. And then in the customer experience space, our arrival was very, very good, just like many hotels. But departure is a bit painful, right? Because you get a big bill. So we put our minds to, well, what can we do there? What we didn't do was give a bottle of wine on departure or a discount voucher for your next stay. What we did hand over with the bill was a sachet of poppy seeds from the gardens with a message from Tom, the head gardener, saying, for you to remember your stay. And the feedback that we got from customers and guests was just fantastic, that they could take these home, put them in the garden, and they would come up every year. And the interesting thing about that is zero cost virtually, right? Enhancing the customer experience in an emotional way, a way that was appreciated enormously and at such small cost. But the key point was that we were reinforcing our positioning of London's favorite hotel and country club.
You know, I just stayed at the Broadmoor Hotel for a client event, which is a beautiful, beautiful resort here in the U.S. It's in Colorado, just at the foot of the mountains. Absolutely beautiful. They did the same type of thing. It was like, here's a little something to take home. And by the way, it's unlike yours where you were trying to be price competitive. They don't care about the price. It's not. It is, you're getting what you pay for, which is immense luxury and well deserved, I think. But those are some of the little things that they did. I remember staying in another fairly high-end resort and saying, look, you've got a minibar, use it. We're not going to charge you. Everything that's there is yours to drink and eat. I went, wow. And if you need more, let us know. And I'm thinking, well, how much of this can I put in my suitcase? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I get what you're saying. So powerful statement. And again, even though you're using a hotel as an example or a country club, I think this kind of thinking transcends. What can you do to, nobody likes to pay for anything. If they could get everything they wanted in life without paying for it, they would probably be very happy. They realize they have to pay for it. That's normal. So what can you do to take some of the sting out of paying for it? And maybe that little gift at the end was nice, but I think there's more to it. And you've already alluded to it. And that is give them an experience that they feel is well worth it. Now, your vision, which go ahead, state it. It was one sentence. Give it to me one more time. I want to hear it.
London's favorite hotel and country club.
So you can flip that as a question. If somebody seems to be out of alignment with their behavior toward a guest or even toward their job, the question might be, do you think how you're responding to this situation, or do you think the way you're acting is in alignment with us being London's favorite hotel and country? And I mean, when you can ask it as a question, I think it's like, oh yeah, this is the way I have to act. I think it kind of puts everything into place.
That's such a brilliant point, Shep. And I use a tool which is called the 31 practices approach, which basically manifests the stated values of an organization into practical, observable behavior.
Mm.
Yes, it's used as an aspirational tool, encouraging everybody to behave like this. But the point you've raised is so important that it's like an iron fist in a velvet glove. Because yes, you're trying to encourage, but if people step out of line, it actually legitimizes the conversation to have just as you've described. If you've behaved in this way, it's not in line with the way that we've agreed we're going to behave in honor of our value. And so can you put it right next time? It makes it easier to have that conversation.
Yeah, my favorite version of what you're talking about comes from the Ritz-Carlton. 9
Yeah.
words. You know what they are. We're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So you could
Yeah.
ask, are you acting like a lady or gentleman serving a lady or a gentleman? And
So
by the way,
powerful.
realizing in today's woke society, we may have to change the language a little bit, but I think the meaning and the spirit behind it still stands.
Definitely.
Yep. All right. One other topic I want to get into, and you kind of mentioned this, that CX is really not to be thought of in a vacuum, that everybody has their role, whether they're on the front line dealing directly with customers or they're behind the scenes supporting someone that is. I know this is a big part of the book, so let's talk about that for a few minutes before we wrap up.
Yeah. Well, in another hotel company, so Intercontinental, that I also enjoyed some time with, they really pushed the concept of the internal customer in the hotel because they recognize that, when the waiter who is facing the customer goes to the kitchen to collect a plate to take it to the table, if the chef doesn't have the mentality that I'm serving this person who is going to be serving a guest, then there's a risk that you might not get the best outcome, right? So everybody understanding in the organization either that they are providing service to a customer or where they fit in, even if it's a support role, is so important. And I used to do a job swap in organizations where I worked. So I remember in a conference center, you mentioning the meetings industry earlier, I did the dishwasher job when a big function was going on, and I'm talking like 700 people for a dinner. And so imagine a kind of a machine the size of a room, and you open the door and you've got these scalding hot plates that need to be removed. And I remember struggling and going, ouch, that hurt. And the supervisor that was working with me, just saying, step aside. And I don't know what his hands were made of. They must have been asbestos or something.
Yeah.
But just whipping all of these plates out and stacking them. But, unless you understand all of the jobs and people understand each other's jobs, then you can't really understand how all of you are working together to deliver that service to your customer.
So let's use this dishwasher as the perfect way to wrap this topic up. And that is, if the dishwasher doesn't do their job, and by the way, the typical dishwasher at a restaurant is not very well paid compared to most everybody else. However, you could have the Michelin-starred chef who makes this gorgeous presentation on a plate. And if the plate was dirty, it's coming back no matter what. By the way, the chef should probably recognize that the plate was dirty before, but still, they shouldn't have to do that. This is a really important job. Everybody's job is important when it comes to customer experience. You just have to understand how they impact the customer with what they do, even if they're 2 or 3 places removed from it. All right, we are basically out of time, and I always close with the final question, which is my one thing question. But the one thing I want you to talk about specifically as we wrap up the conversation is one final nugget from your book.
Yeah. And this is about how CX traditionally has been focused on content. So what happens is a load of people write a load of books and do a lot of talks about customer experience, and people go along, read them, listen, and then they go back to their organization and they try to put that into place without considering the context of their organization. And so for me, this is the key thing. When you're considering how to develop your customer experience, really understand the individual circumstances and situation of your organization, and then apply what you've learned from your books and your talks and all the rest of it, but make sure it fits and it's in the style of your own organization. Else it might not fit.
Yeah, well said. You have to make that bridge. And just because Disney does it fantastic doesn't mean it's perfect for you unless you're able to modify it, tweak it, mold it to what you do.
Dead right.
All right. Well, great conversation, Alan. This is why we call it Amazing Business Radio. Again, the book is titled Supercharging the Customer Experience, How Organizational Alignment Drives Performance, by our guest, Alan Williams, and his co-author, Dave Stubberfield. You can get it if you're in the U.S. and you're listening to this show the day it comes out. You'll be pre-ordering it, and it'll be available in about a week. Otherwise, my friends, just go for it. It's sold everywhere books are sold, especially Amazon.com. Thanks, Alan, for being on the show.
That's it. Thank you so much for the invitation, Shep. Cheers.
All right. I appreciate you. All right, everybody. That wraps it up. Another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We will be back next week with another interview. And until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.